We all know at least one person who can sleep so deep and long that they leave you wondering if they are still alive. And when you give in to the voice of reason to check their breathing, it always turns out that they are still alive. And if you are still not convinced, you can tap them on the shoulder to wake them up, or at least get them to turn to face another direction. While a person in a coma may look like they are sleeping, they are actually in between life and death. They may not wake up at all. You can be yelling at the top of your lungs beside the person that is comatose, but you won't succeed in waking him up except making a big fool of yourself. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Snooze Insider and click on the bell icon to get notified for our latest videos. Information on everything we've talked about will be in the description down below. What is a coma? A coma is a condition where a person is unconscious and unresponsive to any external stimuli in the environment. This person cannot move, speak, feel, or initiate any voluntary action. A comatose person cannot simply be woken up with a mere tap on the shoulder, even if that tap was with a sledgehammer. There are many potential causes for a person to go into a coma, some of which include a serious injury to the brain tumor, severe illness, drug and alcohol abuse, stroke, and even toxins in the body. It could also be medically induced by a doctor, but we'll learn more about this later on in the video. In the past, doctors have tried everything you can think of to revive people from a coma. They've tried inflicting pain on them, shocking them to consciousness, emptying their stomachs, exposing their bodies to fire, and even bloodletting from the head. Of course, none of these tactics worked. Looks like we might have to send a posthumous apology to those poor patients. Types of coma. There are several different types of comas, and they all sort of differ from each other. The first one is a vegetative state. This is when a patient can have involuntary physical movements like coughing or yawning, but does not respond to any external stimuli. Sadly, these involuntary movements are not an indicator of progress and by no means translate to the possibility of waking up anytime soon. It does, however, get the hopes of their loved ones high. Catatonia, on the other hand, is characterized by the lack of any form of movement, and the person might have to be placed on a machine to aid breathing and even to pump the heart. A brain-dead patient is someone that is unable to carry out any higher brain functions except breathing and swallowing, which are the basic functions hardwired into our brain. Typically, brain-dead patients are the result of a severe trauma or illness. Unfortunately, these patients have little to no chance of recovery. A stupor is a state of semi-unconsciousness in which the person is unresponsive to the environment and can be awakened, but only with a huge amount of effort. A person in stupor can easily fall back into unconsciousness, but more often than not, they will recover by themselves. Why medically induced coma? In cases where a person is at high risk of brain injury due to trauma or drug overdose, the doctor may put the patient in a medically induced coma. This is when anesthetics are used to slow down the brain functions so that doctors can control the pressure dynamics in the brain. During an injury or disease, the brain can swell up, causing it to push against the skull, resulting in parts of the brain to starve of oxygen. A medically induced coma is reversible, but it does have an element of risk. It is possible that the patient will not wake if complications arise, or if healing doesn't take place as expected. The duration of a medically induced coma is determined by the severity of the injury and the rate the patient is healing. But medically induced comas are more common than you think. Almost every major surgical patient is placed under anesthesia before undergoing a surgical procedure. How long can a coma last? There is no standard duration for a coma. It could be as short as a day or span the rest of a person's time on Earth. As of today, the longest coma is 37 years. Now that's a lot of missed Super Bowls. Does a patient in a coma grow old? That's a pretty interesting question, eh? Well, the simple answer is yes. A person in a coma will age at a normal pace. However, being unconscious for a long time is not without side effects. A person could develop urinary tract infections, blood clots in the legs and back, speech impediment, muscle atrophy, and even pressure sores. Just a word of warning, do not Google pressure sores. It gets pretty nasty. Although a person can recover from these side effects after gaining consciousness, sadly some people will continue to live with major or minor disabilities for the rest of their lives. Have you learned something new today? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up so we can continue making them. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and remember to click on the bell notification. Share this with a friend if you think they may need a little wake-up call. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Until then, sleep well.